Where is my phone so I can do the intro? Oh no. Okay, here we go.
You haven't memorized the intro.
We recently changed it. I have the old one memorized, but we changed some of the wording slightly, and so now I have to read it again. All right, let's do this. Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to Bugs Need Heroes, the podcast about insect superpowers. Each episode, an artist and an entomologist team up to illustrate the inspiring abilities of insects by creating bug-themed superheroes. I'm Amanda.
I'm Kelly.
Producer Derek, and do we have any cats?
Desi, I think Desdemona is here today. She was a minute
Okay,
ago.
producer Derek and producer Derek and Desdemona are also here. Before we get started with this bug-inspired hero, what's bugging you, Kelly?
It's hard to be bugged. We're well into summer. Things are good. Went to Vermont last
Yeah,
weekend.
your favorite time of year.
Love it. Well, it's too hot. It's getting too hot for me. But I was on the back porch of
Oh,
my
yeah, that's right.
in-laws' house in Vermont, and about 10 feet away from us was a 200 plus pound black bear, just walking through the
Oh my
yard.
gosh.
It was great. It was really cool. We just sat real still and watched him walk by. It was amazing.
My mother-in-law lives up in the mountainous Washington area, and we were up there. This must have been during lockdown because it was the first time we'd seen her in a long time, and we normally see her quite often. And we were just all hanging out on the back porch, and sure enough, there's this field where all the deers hang out, and then all of a sudden, bear attack trying to get this deer, and the deer gets away so easily from this
So
bear.
cool you saw an
The bear's
attempt,
like,
though.
yeah. And low key, I've had anxiety about bears at my mother-in-law's house ever since. She's like, the kids are in the backyard. I'm like, by themselves? You know that we saw a bear there once, right? She's like, would you relax? I've lived here for 35 years. I've only seen a bear once. I'm like, it only takes once. It only takes once. My kids are not as fast as a deer. But I understand that that's my anxiety, not
Yeah,
necessarily the bear's fault.
it was very cool. But I'm always excited when we have guests, Amanda.
Yes, we
And
do have a guest.
one of my favorite people on the planet, and my former master's advisor, and he was on my PhD committee. He can't get rid of me. Dr. Scott Kight from Montclair State University. Scott, thank you so much for coming back. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to chatting about a new kind of bug this time. We had a lot of fun the last time. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me back.
Is anything bugging you before we start about bugs
Oh,
themselves?
where do I start? Where do I start? No, I mean, other than many of the obvious things that are bugging many people these days, I will say the one thing that's captured my attention over the last 24 hours is the viral Coldplay
Yes.
uh, thing,
Yes.
and just the
Can't escape
seemingly
it.
infinite number of memes and riffs on that whole thing. I can't look away. It's like a really bad traffic accident. You just keep seeing the video again and again. And you're like,
Did you see the
so,
one with
but
the
but
Philadelphia Philly?
no.
There's they have the Philly and then a lady Philly, and they do the kiss cam and it catches them and then they like run away. It just never ends. Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh my!
People
But you know,
really jumped on that immediately.
oh my. Well, funny enough, one of the things we're going to be talking about with the critter that we'll be discussing today, believe it or not, there's a connection. I'll not spoil it, but maybe we'll come back to that later in our chat.
Well, what bug are we covering today, Scott?
So
Tell the
today
folks.
we are going to be talking about, for me, and anyone who studies any kind of animal, there was some point in your life that it was like your first, right? Like, what was your first? And this wasn't the first animal that got my attention, obviously, but it was the first thing that I actually studied as a scientist. And so today we're going to be talking about the giant water bug, and I should say plural because there are different kinds of them, but the giant water bugs. And Note the names, giant. Oh,
How big we
that
talking?
already tells you something about them. Yeah, they're pretty big, and to put that in perspective, the ones that we tend to study in my laboratory, they're about the size of your thumb, which is that's pretty respectable. I don't
It's
know if
a
I would call that
it's a
giant,
big
but
bug.
that's pretty respectable. But the really big ones are. Oh, I don't know. They're about the size of a dill pickle. Like they're pretty big. And yeah, bigger than that, Amanda. So yeah, once you pull one of those out of the water, you do not forget this animal. It is you don't think of insects as being majestic. That's not a word we use for insects a lot. Majestic. It's majestic. It's this big, impressive thing. You want me to throw out a few nerdy science facts about them to get us
Oh,
rolling, or?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, these animals, they are insects, so they're in the Insecta. They are in a family of hemipterans or heteropterans, depending on who your
Yeah.
taxonomist du jour is. They're in the true bugs, the Hemiptera or the Heteroptera. They are in a family called the Belostomatidae. I looked that up recently because I was kind of, after all these years, I never really thought about what the roots of
The
that
etymology.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like Dartmouth. Dartmouth. Bellow means dart, apparently, and stoma mouth. So Dartmouth. And you might say, why are they called Dartmouth? Because, like all of the Hemiptera, they have piercing, sucking mouth parts. So these things don't chew their food. They've got modified, mouth parts that sort of form
Oh,
a
straw.
little, uh, a little straw. But in their case, it's in addition to being a straw, it's a piercing, sucking mouth part. They shove it inside things, and they're predators, so they're not shoving it inside fruit. They're shoving it inside other organisms, and so they have we were talking about this before we started recording. The common name for these things among people that know of them is toe biters. Toe biters, and that's because it's never happened to me. And I want to say this: I've handled thousands of these little critters over my lifetime. I've never once been bit by one of them,
Really?
but
They always
but
have
I
such a
hear.
reputation for being aggressive, and you've
Yeah,
never.
well, they bit some of my students, so so I hear
He's
from
not
my
saying he's
students.
never seen them
Yeah,
bite. He's
yeah, I'm
saying
not saying
he's
there's, yeah,
never
they,
been
they
bit.
definitely bite, but they don't, because I had a good mentor that taught me how to handle them when I started studying them, and I can tell you a little bit about that in a bit. But yeah, so they're apparently notorious for people sitting on like docks of a pond. So that's where they live. They're aquatic. Oh, and I didn't mention this. They're water bugs, giant water bugs. They live in the water. They live in small freshwater ecosystems, so usually little ponds. And people might be dangling their little bare feet off the end of a dock, and maybe they're fishing or something. You can kind of imagine this little idyllic, scene. And then apparently these things will swim up and jab their mouth parts into your toe. And I can tell you, I've been bitten by other hemipterans, not giant water bugs, but I've been bitten by things that do the piercing sucking thing. And what they do is when they puncture your skin, that hurts bad enough. But their saliva has like a proteolase, a thing that breaks down
Mhm.
protein. And so basically, you're getting stabbed and injected with a thing that turns your protein into goo
Oh.
that can be sucked back out. Hurts, right? So my students, yeah, definitely give a good scream when this has happened. And I'll be honest, I've been bitten by a different hemipteran before, an aquatic hemipteran actually, because I was sorry, I was a dummy, and I was showing a group of students, different animals you pull up from a freshwater pond, when you're running a dip net around, and I had this little, it's called a water boatman,
Oh yeah.
and those, yeah. So it's a little aquatic insect, and I had it in my hand, and I was showing it to the students, and the little sucker, tagged me, and I screamed like a little girl. I was like through that thing, and it hurts. So the toe biters, the giant water bugs, they are in the family Belostomatidae. So again, Dartmouth, and there are two major clades or lineages or subfamilies. One is called the Belostomatinae, and that's the ones that I study fall into that. And they have the interesting characteristic, and this is what we'll be talking about, I think, today a bit, of the females gluing their eggs to the back of the male, who then swims around for a week or two carrying the eggs until they hatch. So that's pretty interesting. And we'll talk maybe a bit about that. That's what I've studied in them. The other branch of the
Amanda's
family,
confused faced right now is
I saw the
I'm
face.
just thinking about. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about like dad
yeah.
kid backpacks.
I
and how
can't
he's
wait to
just walking
see
around
the
with 'em.
superhero Amanda that comes out of this conversation. I've often thought about this myself, so I want to see what comes out of your brilliant pen and mind. And then the other branch of the family, these are the ones that are the size of pickles. The Lethocerinae, they're a subfamily, and the Lithocerines are massive. They're different though. They're not backbrooders, but the male still takes care of the young. In this case, the female glues her eggs to vegetation that emerges from the water's surface, and the male stands guard over them and will actually bring water up and can kind of keep the eggs, moist until they hatch. So he stays with them until they hatch. So one group are the back brooders; they brood their eggs on their backs, and the other one are stem brooders, and they are big. And even like I said, even the ones I study, the thumb-sized ones, for an insect, that's still
big.
pretty
Yeah.
big. It's pretty big. And there's a whole story around that. Why are they so big? The giant water bugs. Like that's a big bug. Like why are they that big? And one thing that I maybe can start with just to think a little bit about is these things are mobile predators. So they eat other things, and they're sit and wait ambush predators. So they sort of crawl around under the water. By this, it's worth noting, they can trap oxygen under their modified rear wings. So they got a little tank of oxygen back there, a little tank of atmosphere, and they can stay under the water for a very, very long time. And so they'll get down kind of in the Elodia and all these different kinds of submerged vegetation, and they'll just perch there. And my lab studies animal behavior, and so we've tried to observe their behavior. And oh my God, these things can sit without moving. I'm not even kidding, because I've videotaped them for 24 hours without moving.
Wow.
We put a
Nothing?
camera on these things because we were interested in mating behavior and mate choice, and we'll get to that in a bit, because they apparently do have some choosiness about who they decide to mate with, and I wanted to study that. And so, we kind of wanted to see them making the choice. And so we mounted cameras over, the tank that we had the animals in. And we this was back in the quote unquote old days, when we had VHS technology, and so we put it on like EP, extended play. You could like get 6 hours on a tape, and I had 3 or 4 VCR decks stacked up on top of each other and timed so that as one finished recording 6 hours, the other one would click on, and they were all hooked up to the same camera and everything. So we would get like round the clock footage. And then my poor research students would have to watch the films, and and you could watch, I'm not even kidding, on fast forward, 24 hours, and they didn't move.
You're making research sound very glamorous, Scott. Very
right.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the lessons of research, right? Is like
It's tedious.
it ain't no glory to tale, as somebody said in a film, right? It's a lot of sitting and sitting and sitting,
Very
especially
tedious.
with yeah, it can be very tedious, and Kelly knows this firsthand, obviously. So anyway, long story short, they're sit and wait predators, so they can sit still for a very, very long time, and then when a prey moves across probably their visual field, I'm sure they're visual, they got good little eyes, or maybe they're detecting water currents or something like that. But they've got, this is really fun. We were chatting before we started recording about convergence, which is a phenomenon where different species, sometimes very different species of animals, will have something in common in their ecology, maybe the thing they eat, and different things evolve separately, similar characteristics. These things have front legs, front appendages, that look like, if I ripped one off and showed it to you, you would say, oh, that's a praying mantis. So they have mantid-like front appendages, and some shrimp have evolved that, and praying mantises have obviously evolved that. So these sickle-like they call them raptorial appendages. And so they're cocked back, and they can and just grab a prey item, stick that needle mouth, that dart mouth into their prey. And so these things tend to be, the apex predator of the freshwater aquatic insect community, if you will.
Amanda, so
yeah.
Derek has put a couple of pictures in the Discord. How would you
Yes,
describe what they look like?
I would describe them as, firstly, giant. I do think they're giant. When you compare to like the average bug that I encounter, which I would say my average bug is ladybug sized, right? Like I'd say that's your average bear is a ladybug, and then even the small one you described it as being about the size of your thumb, that still feels like a big bug to me. And then producer Derek put in the Discord this picture of one. Yeah, pickle size is the only way. It's a plantain.
Yeah,
To pickle sized bug. It's a biggin. If I was sitting with my cute little tootsies in the water and this guy came by, I'd be like, okay, I'm done with the water today. That was nice. That was fun while it lasted, but it's done now. That's fine. And like Dr. Kight said, it's got these kind of praying mantis-esque front appendages that definitely, I would say that where they differ from the praying mantises is they seem to be almost turned so as to scoop directly into the mouth rather than captured and then bite onto. It scoops directly to the mouth because of the way the front little appendages are oriented.
The body? What's the body?
I would say it looks like a cockroach took the praying mantis's arms and said, I'm improving myself now. And I'm going underwater so that the praying mantis can't get his arms back. Here I go. It looks so streamlined. Like I think of the cockroach and I think about how they can all but like flatten themselves out to get under like doors and stuff. And this guy seems to share that body plan of like, I'm going to be as flat as possible. It's almost like a leaf with legs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, and I can see how he'd get away with sneaking up on you because you're like, oh, look at that brown leaf floating through the water. Psych! It's here for your toes. Yeah. I'd say cockroach with praying mantis arms and the size of a plantain. So
thanks, Amanda.
Derek shared one picture of it eating a baby turtle, and I'm very distressed at this. Yeah. Poor little turtle.
Yeah, what do they eat, Scott, in the wild in general?
And if he gets me with that like turn my flesh into goo thing, how long is that gonna last on me? Like, is this gonna be a bite that lasts for 3 weeks because it's gootified my thumb?
Thankfully, because they're giant, but we're gianter, right? Like we're the Galactus or whatever of the water bug world. So if one of these things bites you, you're gonna do what I did with the other bug I was telling you about. You're gonna go right, and the bite lasts for like the second it takes for your what do you call that? Your
like nervous system reaction.
Yeah. I don't know what. Oh, reflex. Thank you. Your nervous reflex to like bing, knock that thing off of you really quick. So it gets a little bit of sort of quote unquote poison. It's not really poison, but bad stuff into you, and it's going to hurt for a little bit, like 5-10 minutes. I base this on my sample size of one time that I was bitten by a hemipteran, and I've seen my students get bit by them, and it hurts for a little bit, but yeah, it goes away pretty quickly. What their modus operandi is they use those. So Kelly was also asking me, what do they eat? And I would say anything that is big enough for them to overpower that lives in a freshwater environment is fair game. So I've seen pictures of them eating fish, which was kind of funny because my PhD advisor was a biologist who studied stickleback fish. He was academically descended from a person named Nico Tenbergen, who many people have heard of this work where the little fish, when they see red, they get all aggressive and there's all this stuff. So so that was Tenbergen back in the 30s. And so my advisor, Bill Rowland, was still studying sticklebacks. And I remember my PhD dissertation, I think I slipped a slide in of a water bug, devouring a fish. I think it was a stickleback, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah. And I think, these toe biter stories, I don't give them a ton of credence. I'm sure it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I don't know a single person in my entire lived experience that said, yeah, that happened, right? So it probably didn't happen a lot because that's not really how they hunt.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can think is if you dropped your toe into some vegetation, maybe it would elicit an attack.
If you startled them wherever they
Yeah,
were waiting.
maybe. Yeah. Or if you tried to handle
Yeah.
them, they're definitely going to bite you if you try to handle them because it's a defense thing. But yeah, and one thing that they eat a lot of is you guys. I don't know if you've ever done any podcasts on dragonflies and their sort of life history, but yeah, so you know about their aquatic. Half their life they
Yeah.
spend, more than half their life they spend underwater. And they're fun because they've got jet propulsion and gills and all the fun stuff they do. And the little naiads, the little nymphs, we used to call them muck naiads because the water bugs love to eat them like chicken nuggets.
Oh,
And
Little
yeah.
so
nuggies.
we
I
used to.
feared when we said he eats everything in the pond. I said, "Oh
Yeah.
no, my buddy the dragonfly is going down."
Absolutely. They I'm not even kidding. They can clean out the dragonfly supply pretty quick. So they love the
Wow.
McNaiads. And what they'll do is they'll grab their prey. And as you say, Amanda, they absolutely are shaped to pull those things home. And they'll sit there for, an hour or two, just kind of like pumping their little proteases in there and sucking out the soup or whatever it becomes. And they'll spend a lot of time feeding on a thing. Um, I'm thinking, honestly, I think they're probably more insectivorous. I think they're eating
Hmm.
aquatic invertebrates more than things like fishes and stuff, but they will eat them. I mean, they will. But anyway, yeah, that's what they eat. They will eat each other,
Hmm. Like
something
most
to keep
bugs.
in
Yeah,
mind.
lots of.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
like 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 they avoid it, but if hey, if there's nothing, and in fact, there's a tremendous. We'll get around to this maybe in our talk today. So you saw some pictures of these things. I don't know if producer Derek found some with eggs on their backs, but like these things can
Yeah.
hold, the back brooders can hold about 100 eggs on their back. And, those things all, hatch around the same time. So there will be this little period, especially if you have them in captivity, where you've got all these tiny little Belostomatids now and kind of a cloud and they're all
Oh
swimming around.
no. Yeah.
And those little suckers are predators too, right? So they eat just like their parents. They are born with raptorial appendages and piercing, sucking mouth parts. So they're already eating little things, including each other. So we've had this happen where like eggs will hatch overnight when we're not around, and you come back the next morning and it's like two or three survivors of the Hunger Games, and everybody else is just a shell. So they're very voracious. They eat a lot and pretty quickly.
When the eggs
Oh,
hatch,
snails! I
then
should have mentioned snails. They love snails.
snails.
Escargot, they love that. Yeah.
They're nice and slow.
Oh, they're very français.
Oh, you think that shell can protect you from my very long mouth parts? No, it cannot. Oh.
Oh yeah, producer Derek has put some egg pictures
Yeah.
in, and I am disturbed by them. Although seeing him out of the water, he does kind of have the praying mantis's head as well. It's like a praying mantis wearing a cockroach's jacket, basically, is what I'm seeing, and he's underwater.
Oh yeah, it does have the kind of
Yeah.
rectangular head of a mantis.
Yeah, that rectangular big eyes on the side, down to that true bug mouth that we talked about all summer here. So yeah, interesting.
Well, speaking of all those eggs, Scott, do you want to tell us about their mating and mate choice and how all
Sure.
that? How do we get to the
Yeah.
egg point?
Let's dig into the behavior a little bit because that's
That's the fun
very
stuff.
unusual. And I think you guys know this already. What's called unipaternal care, like only the male takes care of the young, is exceedingly rare in the animal kingdom. There are a relative handful, smaller than a handful of species that do it anywhere. And so people are like, oh, but what about seahorses? Yeah, that's right. What other fish?
And what
Oh,
else?
yeah, the seahorses, right? So,
I mean, just paternal care, like across the board. I think
Yeah,
it feels
pretty
like
rare.
the more rare. Yeah.
Pretty rare, and we take it for granted in our species because we're largely biparental in our species. So people just sort of assume, oh, well, everybody takes care of their young. No, actually, almost nobody takes care of their young, male or female.
Yeah.
The standard way of doing it is laying an egg and leaving, and then going making more eggs, right? So nobody usually takes care of the kids, and so even when that happens, it's usually the female, and we can talk about the theory around that. Why is it usually
Yeah.
the female? And I have several witty theories that aren't mine, but they're very witty about why is that. And so then let's say we've got this 1% of all animals show any kind of care, then 1% of those show any kind of male care, and that, if it's going to happen, typically is biparental, and they're helping the female. And then so 1% of those, it's only the male. The female leaves her eggs or young with the male and goes away and doesn't contribute to their post zygotic care in any way. So it's super rare. So water bugs do it, seahorses do it, pipefish, which are seahorses.
Which are basically seahorses, yeah.
Yeah, they're the same though. They just shape differently. They're cousins. There's some interesting bird examples. Jacanas do it, where the female and the male mate, they build a nest and she flies away after she lays the eggs, but it's super rare. And so, what's that about? We can talk about what that about theoretically, or we can talk about what water bugs do. We can do both, but which do you want to do first?
Let's start with theory, and then we can move into practice.
Okay, let's talk about theory. So one common theory that gets knocked around. And by the way, I'm going to pause for a second because it's all too easy in like a podcast or interview kind of setting to sound like I did all this and I thought of all this and this is my stuff. When in fact, with any researcher, you did a little bit of this bigger story. So I want to acknowledge a scientist at, where was he at? I know he's retired now. His name is Robert Smith. And he did a lot of research. Yeah, he was. I think I want to say Arizona, probably University of Arizona.
Imagine you're in the Cure and you're just like a huge bug guy. Hilarious.
Oh yeah, no, not that Bob Smith. This would be Robert L. Smith. But by the way, since you mentioned it, I got to hang out with him one time at an Animal Behavior Society meeting, and he does, in fact, bring a guitar with him to the professional conferences he attends, and he sits outside playing his guitar. So you see, here we go, small world. Those Bob Smiths, they can't help it. So anyway, but he did a lot of the first work looking at the actual behavior of these things in the 1970s. And so that was shortly after that, the 1980s, was when I was in college. And I became aware of this man's work and was just like, this is the coolest thing there ever was. I want to study these things too. And so it's not that nobody knew about water bugs, but believe it or not, 100 years ago, most scientists assumed that these were the females, that when they found a bug with eggs all over its back, that, clearly it must be the mother that's taking care of the young. I should say that something interesting is the males and the females look the same. You can't, they don't have obvious secondary sexual characteristics. They look exactly the same. And one thing I have to teach my students to tell them apart is you have to hold them up and take a magnifying glass and look at their private parts. You have to look at their genital plate. And the males have a little different thing happening down there for sperm transfer. And so you have to get up close and personal with these guys to do that, which is probably why some of my students have been bit over the years. Yeah. So my mentor, who's another professor named Kip Cruz, who's now retired, he was my master's thesis advisor, and he showed me how to handle these. And it's not that hard. It's like that end bites, and this end has the genitals. Make sure that you're holding the side that does, because they're not bendy. They're not bendy. So they're very, very rigid. And so I've held thousands of these things by the anterior, the back end of their bodies, and they want to bite me. Oh, they sure do. There's those little mantis appendages get stretched out, and that little mouth part is doing this, trying to get to me, and I'm like, oh, too bad you don't have a waist, buddy. So there's nothing they can do. Anyway, we were talking about theories about why the males and only the males. And so again, I just want to credit Robert Smith for doing some of the behavioral work. He wasn't the person that discovered, it's actually the males. And believe it or not, if you go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, and you look at some of the papers about these things, scientists were imagining that they weren't finding it when they were dissecting, but they were imagining that there was some kind of like a crane arm that came out of the female that put her eggs on her own back. They were like, she's got to have a structure to do this. And these bizarre little drawings, which I'm sure Amanda would find quite entertaining. I
do love an old-timey scientific drawing.
I love that the sexism of the time transferred right onto the bugs.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And
right?
We've talked before about how they're having to go back and undo some of that research now because there's so much assumption. And I've talked before about my anthropology class. They talked about how forever they couldn't figure out the family structures of these native persons in now they call it the Hawaiian structure, but they're like, how do they organize their families? We can't figure it out. We can't figure it out, because these Europeans were assuming it was
Male.
like their structure, but
Yeah.
male dominated,
Male
patriarchal.
dominance.
You follow the
Yeah.
father line, but no, it's mother line, and it took them so long to figure it out when it seems so obvious. Like,
Yes.
well, did you check if it's the mom?
It couldn't be. What?
The woman. And like they're finding all these like grave sites now that are like, oh, it was totally a woman this whole time, and we assumed because there was a sword it was a man.
Yeah, there's quite a few like
bad.
Scandinavian like graves being unearthed, and like, oh, this woman fought. This woman was
right.
like, yeah, a fighter. So
Like shield maidens aren't a thing. Like that's not a thing that was real.
No,
because
they were women
didn't
who
have their
actually
own
fought.
separate. Yeah. Exactly. They were just with everybody else. And when I was buying your sword, Kelly, I was like, how do I get the most accurate to the
Thank
Viking
you.
grave swords without having to spend museum money?
yeah, Scott, Amanda and Derek bought me a sword for my PhD, which is a
proper gift.
Finnish custom, apparently.
Very nice.
Yes,
so-
Very nice. Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. I've heard about that. Yes. Yeah, that you get a sword when you get your PhD. I'm like, why didn't I get a sword? That would be great.
Well, I have
very
a
nice.
sword
It's
now. Yeah.
representative of like
Very
being a
nice.
defender of truth
Love it.
and justice.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can
it's-
lay down
There
some
you go.
smack on any academic bad guys.
But
Defund me, will you?
oh, please fund me, please. Yeah. so the theories then, it took scientists forever to figure out that it was
Yes,
the
and what you
males.
just talked about, I think, was like, it's almost like, and we didn't, people listening at home, in any way set this up, but you guys totally set it up for the first theory. Why it's so rare is because mommy's babies are daddy's maybes. You always know who the mom is
Yeah.
of anybody, right? Because you saw the egg come out of mom, or you saw the baby come out of a male. I'm sorry, a male, never a male. The mother mammal. I'm sorry, but it's daddy's maybes, because if she, if anybody else had a chance to get sperm near those eggs, whose sperm were they, right? So, we could spend many episodes just talking about that, not in just insects, obviously, but in all animals, including ours, because that is absolutely the case. You're never, unless with modern genetic testing, DNA fingerprinting, you're never 100% certain as a male that you are actually the biological sire of any particular offspring that was produced by your mate, but you're both 100% certain that they are hers, right? So mommy's babies are daddy's maybes. So why is male uniparental care so rare? Well, imagine, just do a little natural selection experiment in your head, where not all the time those eggs that I've got glued on my back were actually inseminated by me. Then you can imagine natural selection favoring males that are more discriminating, if you will, right? Or males that don't provide parental care, because you're basically spending your time and your life and your energy ensuring someone else's kids survive and hatch and whatever. And we can talk a little bit about parental care in a bit, like what are the eggs getting out of it, but at the beginning of the story, it's like, what is dad getting out of it?
Yeah.
Like, what is he getting out of this? So my colleague Robert Smith, who I talked about earlier, one of those papers I was reading about when I was in grad school back in the 80s that he published, I think in the late 70s, is this is before modern molecular biological techniques where you could look at the genes and tell who the genes came from. So he was Mendelian, and he identified in his population that he was studying some like morphological variation. There were different morphotypes, right? Mm-hmm. That he was able to do some breeding experiments around, and he could true breed them. So now it's like fruit flies, with red eyes and white eyes, or short wings and long wings, or whatever the different traits are that you look at when you do genetics in college. So he had something like that going on with water bugs, and he would do these mating trials. And sure enough, when you let them mate, and the dad would carry the eggs until they hatched, he was able to show that 99% of the eggs were indeed sired by the male that was
Wow.
carrying the eggs. They have huge paternity assurance. Now, this is a big deal in the insect world because unlike us, females can store sperm. They have a spermatheca. So the female might mate with 5 or 6 different males, she could, and store sperm from previous matings. And so every time a female lays an egg, she's doing the inseminating, really. And so they have an interesting mating system. It's very unusual. The male and the female will copulate for like 24 hours to fill his back with eggs. And what they do is they do a round of copulation and insemination, and then she'll glue 1 egg on his back. And then he will push her off, do it again. He lays another egg, right? And so you get these little cornrows of eggs forming on his back over like a 20-hour period of time, a very long time. But what that does, you might think, oh my gosh, what's that about? Is that there's an interesting phenomenon, and it's not just water bugs, it's lots of different kinds of critters, where there's this what's called like quote unquote last male advantage, where the most recent mate that she's had, his sperm, if you will, are sort of closest to the business end of her spermatheca. They're most likely to be the sperm that end up on an egg. So this repeated copulation apparently ensures that the young are actually going to be his young. And so they've got among the best paternity assurance mechanisms of all animals. And again, not surprising in the rare case where the male is the only one taking care of the young.
Wow, that's fascinating.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
That like he's like, okay, we're doing this, but I need to see the bakery happening right now. I need
pretty impressive.
I need the buns in the oven.
Yeah.
As I stand here and watch you. That's crazy.
Yeah. So you're good.
So why though? So I guess my question with that is, if she is storing sperm potentially from another male, why did she not mate? Why did she not choose that male for her eggs?
Well,
why is she not going like by expiration date first?
Right. Oh my gosh, those are wonderful questions. And so if you were wondering why I was putting them under cameras for 24 hours, it was those kinds of questions we wanted to ask. What is it that she sees in a mate that makes her want to actually, mate with him, right? What's he got going for him, so to speak? And there's so much that we were unable to answer because they're just so reticent to perform under camera, as it turns out. But we've done various experiments around that, and so in fact,
my OnlyFans.
Yeah, one of my earliest research interests, and it was part of my master's thesis actually. Now that I think about it, is when you go out and you collect these things in nature. Which, by the way, I'm going to take another quick tangent. By the way, these things are not easy to find. They're underwater, as you said, Amanda. They look like leaves. Yeah, they do. I suspect that's evolution by natural selection, making them blend in with their backgrounds. Right? They're hard to see when they're sitting still.
I'm constantly amazed by how much a bug could look like a leaf.
Yeah, right. It's a very common.
We talked about it. Just with mantis episode, we were looking at mantises that look like other stuff. And I'm like, my gosh, how do they do this? It's amazing.
And if you think about it, they specifically look like the kind of dead leaves that fall into water and turn brown, right? So they look a lot like the stuff they're sitting in. And so they're hard to catch, right? So believe it or not, when I have students that study these, we spend a rather large amount of time just trying to find them. And when we're in the pond, like after all these years of doing it, I've got this spidey sense for where they're going to be. It's like a fisherman or a fisherwoman, right? like if you've got a relative or a friend who's like an angler who does this and it's their passion, like they can just like look at a pond and be like, oh yeah, there's a big bass sitting right behind that log there. And you're like, what? They're like, yeah, no, I know there is. And they drop a line over there and bam, they bring in this big, massive fish. And I'm like, that's never happened to me in my whole life ever. I get the little panfish, the little sunfish is what I catch. So I, if I am. I'm a bug meister, right? I'm really good at catching bugs. So I'll go in and I know exactly where to put my net and I know exactly what to do. And then I pull out my net. Oh, there's 3 or 4 water bugs in there. And after 3 hours, I've collected 200 of them and my students have collected 2 of them, right? So there is a bit of an art to finding these things. Where was I going with this? We were talking about mating behavior. I'm sorry. Here's what it is. I'm so sorry. So why do females choose particular males over other males? That was one of the questions you were talking about.
Especially after they've already mated male number 1. Why are they choosing male number 2?
And they've got leftover.
Now this is an interesting thought, right? So she spends a lot of time gathering the resources that are required to make these big, giant, juicy eggs. And there's a whole story around that I'll try to remember to talk about. Why are they so big and why they do parental care? Part of it's the size of the eggs. I'll come back to that. But she spent a lot of time and energy making those eggs. She had to eat a lot of McNiads, right, to make all the eggs. And so, if you think about it, she should be discriminating. She should be very discriminating about where she leaves those things. She spent a lot of time and energy making them. Now, there's a whole other story, which we may or may not delve into today, but let's just say during parts of the year, when I go out and collect these things, this is where I was going with the collection thing. I typically have new students in the fall who want to do research in the fall. They're back to college. They're like, hey, professor, can we do research? Can I do a thesis with you? And so we tend to go out in September, October, collecting these things. And at that time of year, most of the males that you collect that have eggs on their backs don't have a full back. They've got this is going to sound like a football game, but they have a quarterback or a halfback, right? Like their back is not completely filled with eggs. So I've always had this theory that females may also not have a complete complement of eggs, or they might, right? So they have a varying number of eggs that they have on hand, if you will, at a time. And I always had this hypothesis that if I'm a female that's sort of half full, I might actually prefer a male who's also already half full with someone else's eggs, because then I fill him up, right? And you might say, well, what does that matter? Oh, I'll tell you exactly what it matters, because this is what I did my master's thesis on. My advisor was studying very different things than I wanted to study, and I was just watching these things, and I noticed that sometimes in the lab, males would reach back with their appendages and literally peel off all the eggs, just scrape them off. Like they come off in a pad, they're all stuck together. He'd reach, and you could see him do it. Like he would reach back and go whomp, and this egg pad would fall off. And that is death for water bug eggs. So they sink to the bottom and they stop developing. And again, we can talk a little bit about that. Why? It has to do with the size of the eggs. But anyway, back when I was, like 20, what was I, like 22 years old maybe? And I was like, Dr. Cruz, why do they kick off their eggs sometimes? He's like, oh yeah, I've noticed that. We think maybe they're stressed out and it's a stress response. And I'm like, yeah, but they spend like a day getting those eggs on their back. It's a big investment. Why would they knock them off? And he's like, you know what? I don't know. That sounds like a good master's thesis project. So I was already thinking about that, right? And so what I found was in my master's thesis research was that they were very unlikely to remove a larger pad of eggs. Like if their back was full, zero, if you want to call it abortion or infanticide or whatever you want to call it, zero abandoning of eggs. A half back, there's some probability they'll knock it off. A quarterback, like they've only got 25% of their back full, there's a very high chance they'll reach back and knock them off. And so I was very intrigued by that, and that led to a lot of stuff over the next decades of my life where I was like, what is that about? And I mean, it makes sense from the point of view of the male. It's like, well, if I'm going to knock off some eggs, get rid of a handful of them, not a big bunch of them, right?
Well, why take care of 5? When you can just go get a full back, right?
Yeah, like maybe if I knock these off, I can find a female that will give me more, is one thought, right? But we do know that females and males will mate after he's got some eggs from another female on his back. But there's a time window, and this is where it gets tricky. And I started thinking about time a lot back then, phenology, this timing of biological events. So like if I'm a male and I've got half my back full of eggs, I'm going to continue to solicit more eggs for a while. And there's this other story, which we haven't gotten to yet. Males do courtship. They swim to the surface of the water. They get up on top of the kind of the vegetation that's at the top, and they do push-ups. They're like doop 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 doop, and you can see these
Nice.
these
Look at
waves.
how
Yeah,
strong
right.
I
It's
am.
kind of like a thing happening, and hey, like baby, my beats. And it
These guys are real chads so far. I gotta
they
say.
are, man. Chad. So you get these like concentric waves kind of rippling out from the male, and the females will follow that. Again, all my life, I'm like, what does a female find most attractive about a wave? Because that's really what she's first detecting. Is there's like these little waves from a male kind of lapping up against her little sensory organs, and at some point she's like, yeah, I like the rhythm
beat.
of this one, right? Yeah, I'm gonna go check this guy out, but I'm ignoring the others, right? So what is he doing? And I've never cracked that one, by the way. I don't know what the answer to that question is. And we've tried. We've tried. We've tried manipulating, like putting plungers on top of water and trying to get female. And again, in the lab, they're like, "What, poser?" There's some magic a real bug does, that you can't fake apparently. But where am I going with this? Okay, so I'm a half-back male. And it turns out that after I get my back filled with eggs from one female, I will continue for the next 24 hours-ish to court and try to attract another female to fill me up the rest of the way. If that doesn't happen, my behavior changes very dramatically after about 24 or 48 hours. I either keep the eggs I have and just carry them to term until they hatch, or I knock them off. Right? So they're making this decision around that point. And that's really, and Kelly knows because we've worked together on research before, like that really is my research interest, how animals make decisions about things like that. Like why did I decide to keep them? Why did I decide to kick them off, right?
Is that decision time-wise so that all of your eggs hatch around the same time? Like you don't want...
Thank you.
That was literally my first thought,
That is literally
too.
the answer. Yes, you are correct. That's right. So
Okay.
we've done a number of things.
I'm a scientist.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Amanda. Gold star, Amanda.
Gold star. You're in the club, right? And that's really what science is about. You've got this interesting question. You've got a few ideas about what the answers might be. You go and you test them. And yeah, it's about hatching synchrony, because think about this. I'm a water bug. I probably am going to get a good couple of months, if I'm lucky, as an adult to do this. It takes a week or two for one group of eggs to hatch. So if I have half my back full and I wait a week and then I fill the rest up, the first ones I got will hatch. Now I got to sit around and wait for the rest of them to hatch before I can knock the whole thing off and start over. So absolutely, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that is indeed what's going on. So now this is interesting, because now we've got this little economic thing happening, right? Where it's like I've got currency in the form of eggs, and I can spend them or I can lose them, so my whole master's thesis was around a theory called the Concord principle. And this is an interesting story you may or may not have heard before. So you've heard of the Concorde airliner, that big jet that they made in the 70s. Do you know about this? You guys are younger than me, but they made this supersonic passenger jet called the Concorde. And it was shaped really funny. It was very funnel shaped. It had like a little pointy nose on it. And it would fly faster than sound. And the idea back then, because we didn't have an internet, the idea back then was that, wouldn't it be cool if the flight from like New York to Heathrow would take 3 hours? You can imagine a business person in Wall Street getting on a plane, getting to Europe for a morning meeting, doing their business, flying back to Wall Street and doing some kind of thing as a result in person on the other coast, on the other continent in the same business day, right? So that was kind of what was driving it. That was what international business, the future of international business, was somehow getting human bodies across the ocean back and forth in one day. And I remember there was this stunt during Live Aid back in the 80s. I remember, that was when I was in college. Live Aid was on, right? And the deal was that like Phil Collins, the drummer for Genesis, he performed in the London version of Live Aid, and then they put him on the Concorde, and he managed to be there in time to perform at the USA version of Live Aid in the same day, and they had him on the Concorde. Anyway, long story short, Concorde. You might say, we don't have those anymore, do we? I don't think any Concordes are flying now. Turns out when they were developing this airplane, it was a multinational project. The UK, the United States, and maybe France, were sort of in it together, and all the governments were forking over, what then was, I'm thinking Dr. Evil was like millions of dollars, right? So they were forking over probably millions of dollars, but to develop this thing. And somewhere along the line, as I understand the story, somebody somewhere was like, the engines that make these things fly faster than sound are really loud, like really loud, window breaking loud. And you can't land this at JFK. You can't land this at Newark Liberty. You can't land it at Heathrow because there's too many residential neighborhoods that are going to be sound bombed. Yeah. So now the politicians of the day who had already invested a bunch of tax dollars into this venture, they had a choice. And so we're back to decision making. They could have said, wow, well, this was a bad idea. You win some, you lose some. We just wasted a bunch of money. Or they could have done what politicians actually do, which is like, oh, crap, we can't have the voters think we're wasting their money. Let's go ahead and keep funding the project. And because the logic was, we can't waste the money we've already wasted. So let's go ahead and finish the project and waste more money.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yes, that is a fallacy, right? So that's the Concorde fallacy.
Kelly and I were both
right
there.
So anyway, now I got these water bugs. And in behavioral ecology at the time, people are writing about the Concorde fallacy. Do animals do this? Do animals sort of continue making bad investment decisions, when an investment kind of goes south and there's clear evidence that that's the case? And there were already a few papers published around that time. And so I was interested in that. And now I've got a system, an economic system, to ask that question. Because males have an investment that becomes bad, after a while, right? And so through some interesting, experimental, somersaults, I guess, we were able to show that they were making pretty savvy decisions, actually, about whether to keep or abandon their offspring, depending on how many eggs they had and how long it had been since they got them. Yeah. And I just remember at the time, even as 23-year-old Scotty, just like going like, how do they, how do they know, and I'm sure it's just a little thing. It's a little instinct that they've evolved. But they are very, very shrewd investors. And if nothing else, for the people listening at home, I think that, we probably have not harnessed the results of evolution on nervous systems enough in informing the kinds of decisions we make about things like energy and money and all these kinds of things, because natural selection has been at this for billions of generations. The solutions are pretty sophisticated, as it turns out, and this thing has a tiny little nervous system. So anyway, long story short, smart little bug makes some really good decisions about the investment it's made, which is unusual because they, unlike most animals, have very high paternity assurance. These are my kids, and I'm going to make good investments around them.
Well, they're also short-lived, right? So you only have so much time to invest in egg masses if you've got a season or two to go, and then that's it. Yeah.
Yep. You can't get it wrong. So that's it. There's some other theories around, the who takes care of the kids. Another theory that maybe is good for storytelling here, but I'm not sure is a really good explanation, is who's left holding the bag. So in mammals, mom is left holding the bag.
Yeah.
So you're, if anybody's taking care of the kids, it's going to be the mother for sure, and maybe the father. So in most animals, that's probably the case with internal fertilization. But then when you start thinking about animals that have external fertilization or something like this one we're looking at now. So like with stickleback fish, that's another example of uniparental care. My advisor, Bill Rowland, and Grandpa Nico Tinbergen, my academic grandfather, they studied stickleback, and stickleback males build a little nest of algae and they court females, and the female lays her eggs in his little nest, and then he sprays sperm on them. and then takes care of them. So again, some of the theories knocked around are that, oh well, she lays the eggs and she's out of there before he inseminates them. So he's left holding the bag, so to speak. So there's some stuff around that, but that's it. And so then maybe while we're kind of on this topic of parental behavior, and I know, we've got limited time left probably, but why do they need someone to take care of these eggs? Why parental care anyway? When you look at the Belostomatidae on the sort of evolutionary tree of the Hemiptera, you see some parental care popping up a few places independently on the Hemiptera clade, but the Belostomatidae are on their own, nobody near them is doing parental behavior. So what's it about? What's it about? And the answer is probably partially due, and I think Bob Smith probably thought about this stuff first. It's probably surface area to volume ratio stuff. So they have an unusual egg structure, I think, for insects in that they lack, oh goodness, I can't remember the name of it. It's some egg membrane, chorion, or some egg membrane that normally is used to keep water in for terrestrial, because insects evolved terrestrial. So their eggs are usually...
There's a couple chorion layers.
Yeah.
It's like some internal chorion layer.
Thank you. Yeah, so that kind of stuff, right? And in most insects, that's in the business of allowing gas exchange, but simultaneously keeping water on the inside so they don't dry out. That's a terrestrial animal problem. But these are terrestrial ancestors that kind of went back to the water, and so now I think Belostomatids, either they don't develop that structure or it's different. It's different, and so they get gas exchange. Well, and I should also add gas exchange. They don't have access to the diffusion gradient that you get in atmosphere, where a large fraction of the gas in the atmosphere is oxygen. So you get this big concentration gradient of more oxygen on the outside of the egg than on the inside of the egg. And so the oxygen is going to diffuse into the egg. But a dissolved oxygen in water is a much smaller fraction relative to atmosphere. So now we've got these big eggs with big embryos that are doing a lot of metabolism. They're chewing through oxygen like no tomorrow. And so to get the oxygen in and out, you can't have a membrane that's in any way impeding that. So what they do then is they bring those eggs to the surface of the water. So these things are not developing underwater. The bugs are underwater. They're bringing the eggs to the surface of the water. So the male Belostomatidae, the backbrooders, there's this whole other cost they pay because they're not hiding down in the vegetation. Yeah. They're spending a huge amount of time at the surface where they're obvious from above and below. Yeah, like fish see you from below, birds see you from above, and you can't hold still because they aerate the eggs by pumping up and down like they do when they court. That's one of the theories, by the way, is that females can somehow tell who a good brooder is going to be because he's good at push-ups. So they do these little push-ups with the eggs on their back to kind of slosh water over them and kind of oxygenate them, aerate them. Anyway, on and on I'm going. Listen to me, but these eggs are so big because the insects are so big, right? The lithophthirines are huge. Their eggs are massive, and so if they were to stay underwater, the eggs are just too big. You wouldn't get enough oxygen into the eggs, so they have to bring them up the atmosphere, hence parental care. Dad keeps the eggs wet while they're developing. So that's kind of interesting stuff.
Do females fight over the males, considering, or someone just finds them and whoever gets there first?
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that question. I just don't know the answer to that question. I anecdotally,
have you seen anything?
There's this memory tickling somewhere. Hey, you read somewhere that someone had said they observed females kind of pushing each other off or something like that. But whether that's legit, I don't know. That might just be a hallucination or an anecdotal it looks like they're competing. I think the competition is probably, well, now this is interesting too. There's my advisor Kip Cruz published a paper on this. The what's the word I'm looking for? It's one of these things where you get old and you have white hair like I have, and the words don't want to come to your mouth. The operational sex ratio. So sex ratio in most species is going to be 50-50 biologically, genetically, right? So half the species are males and half the species are females. There's all sorts of interesting theories about why that is and how that works. But it is the case in water bugs. Half of them are boys, half of them are girls. In the spring, when they reproduce, they've just come out of hibernation. So they become adults in the fall. They may or may not get to reproduce in the fall. They burrow down into the, submerged gook, and they spend the winter there. And then when it starts warming up, they come out, they mate. So it's the first mating of the season. Everybody's grown up. Everybody kind of synchronously is available to mate, meaning that the females have complements of eggs at the same time that males are sexually mature and ready to mate, right? So and what you find is that when you collect these things in the spring, males almost uniformly have 100% of their back covered with eggs. And they're from the same female. And you can tell this because the eggs actually get bigger as they grow. So in a male that's mated with two females, the anterior part of the pad where she started, the first female, the eggs are actually bigger than the eggs that are toward the front, and there's like a gap between them. So, but not in the spring. Like females have 100% of eggs to give, and males have empty backs to take. Everything's kind of synchronized, and that's what you see. In the fall, it's different. They all sexually mature at the same time because they all grow at the same rate, but it takes females longer to become reproductively available because they have to make eggs, right? So they got to eat a lot of stuff. They got to make eggs.
It's costly.
The males are ready to go. So you've got this population full of randy males that are ready to mate, and the females are sort of like gradually coming online, and maybe before they even have a full complement of eggs, right? They're mating. Now you start seeing these halfbacks. So you see all these halfbacks in the fall and fullbacks in the spring. And so my advisor, Kip, was studying that and that shapes sexual selection, right? Because who's choosy depends on who's holding the bag on a limited resource. And so females typically are the choosy sex because females have the eggs and males just want to do the cheap thing and dump sperm on them. But this is a different story. These guys are spending, a couple of weeks taking care of those eggs. They've got a much bigger stake in it than some sperm. Sperm in this case isn't quote unquote cheap like it is in many species. The parental investment from the male is not cheap. So there's this idea that choosiness is different, and who does the choosing may be different in the two breeding seasons because of the availability of backspace. So in the spring, the males all get full of eggs really quick. And it's cool still, so egg development takes longer. So for weeks, all the males in the population are full of eggs. They're not available to mate with.
They're done, yeah.
But now you got females that yolk up more eggs, right? They're ready to go. There aren't a lot of males available. So there's a theory, Kip has, that you're going to actually have male choosiness in the spring because they've got the limited resource. Like, I'm free, I have an open back. Ladies, right?
Who's the best lady?
Yes, lots of ladies looking for a place to put her eggs, right? I can be choosy. But in the fall, it's turned on its head. Now, everybody's got open backs. Females have various kinds of eggs, right? So now, who knows where it goes, right? Maybe it's more female choosiness.
It might flip.
Right.
That's really interesting.
It's weird. And the fact that males court suggests there has been intersexual selection, favoring because of female choice, but maybe not in all seasons. Anyway, it's cool. It's a complicated web. It's a very neat love story.
The females don't express any courtship, do they? Then in the spring,
we've looked for that. We're like, is there something that males are using to choose females? And they don't do any kind of behavior that we've ever seen that suggests they're courting. But one thing about them that does change is as they become more gravid, as they have more eggs, their little potato chip bodies. You were talking about them having these little thin potato chip bodies. Their little potato chip bodies get thick. And so as a human, you can hold them up and you go, wow, she's full of eggs. She's about to drop a whole backspace full of eggs, or she's got about a half back full of eggs, right? So like a human being looking at it can tell. So I can imagine that if a male and a female start to mate, the male's like, wait a minute, baby, you don't have enough eggs to make it worth my while, or something. I'm being silly, obviously, but.
Well, I wonder if you would put put them in, if you gave a male a choice between females of various
We
gravidity,
tried that.
if he would do something. Oh, no,
That was
nothing.
literally the experiment with the 24 hours of videotaping. We did exactly
Oh
that
God.
thing, and we just could never get them to do it on camera for us.
They're
Yeah, they were too
shy.
shy. They would literally just sit there quiet and not move. And another one of my students, she was a
What's
thesis
that?
student, and she spent many, many days and months of her time trying to make that work, and it just never did.
Oh.
Oh, look at this.
So here's where I am on the sketch. I kind of did my thesis was kind of a aqua based hero on his day off. He's going fishing with his
Awesome.
boys.
He's going fishing with his boys.
So I gave him. So he's like handing the one on his back. He's handing him some goldfish crackers, and then I didn't want to make him like a foot freak, so I gave him in Australia, kids are called ankle biters, so I gave him an
Ankle biter.
kid.
Yeah. Oh, kids do bite ankles.
Um,
They do.
They
I've been
are
bit on the ankle by
menaces.
kids. Oh my gosh.
and then I kind of wanted to keep the aqua reference going, so I gave him not a trident but a
Yeah.
bident, which was a
And it's like,
more fishery.
and it's got the little.
Amanda, you should have like a spring-loaded spine that comes out of the center of the bident.
Yeah, okay. I'll add a piercing
Yeah, that's
mouth
cool.
part.
Ching. Ah.
Oh, like I think they're called Hawaiian slings in fishing,
Oh.
which I know because I've seen every single season of Survivor. Fun fact about me.
Nice.
I love his little fishing hat. I can see little hooks and
Yeah.
lures on it.
Yeah. This is
Yeah,
very cute.
and he's-
I
and
was
he's
like,
got-
do they still do this where they put the hooks and lures in, or is that strictly from my
love it.
childhood that I remember
love
them
it.
doing
The
that?
back rooting. You got the kid on their back. That's cool. I love it.
It's a great job, Amanda. I can't believe
Yeah.
you whipped these up
I know.
so quick.
Amazing. That's amazing.
What colors would you add to this, Scott? What colors do you think it
Well,
should be?
I guess if it would be boring for a comic book, but realistically, you would make him kind of like dead leaf colored. But I don't know, like I'm thinking Aquaman. The more sort of marine greens and blues and fish colors. Would be fun
Yeah.
for a
But
superhero.
he can have those boring colored shorts.
There you
That'll
go.
yeah, the cargo.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
wearing cargo
those
shorts.
those khaki pants. Yeah,
So funny.
Hawaiian sling.
So Scott, was there anything else you wanted to share about these really cool, like super cool bugs?
Kind of like a
I'm a little sad they weren't in your lab when I was there.
Yeah, you missed out on this. I think and I don't want to. I know we're probably running out of time. So if you don't mind,
okay.
I'll pick one thing and spend just a few minutes on it. Is that what you're looking for?
Sure.
Okay.
If you want.
So the very last thing I ever published on these things, which has been a few years ago now, was about climate change. And so, that's the topic that's always unhappy to talk about, but it's the world we live in, and it's the world that we're growing into. That's not, that's just going to continue to change. It's not stopping, right? So you might say, what does that have to do with this animal? And here's the story, and it's always a story, right? We love to tell stories, and it's often with my students. And so I had two master's students that were starting in my lab. It was the fall, and we started speaking like in the middle of summer about their projects, and we developed out their projects, and they were like, hey, we'd love to study these water bugs that you told us about. I'm like, all right, this was fun. We're going to go out and catch these things. So, we get our waders on, we drive out to the middle of nowhere, get our nets, jump in the water. And, as is so typical, and I'm not throwing smack at my former students that might be listening to this, but as is typical, in, like literally 5 minutes, I've got several of these things in my container that I've caught. And, after a few hours, they had 2 or 3 that they caught. None of them had any eggs on their backs, which, we started collecting in kind of like late August. And I was like, by now the fall generation should have started mating a little bit. We should see somebody with a few eggs on their back. And so we kept coming back, sampling, collecting them, through like October-ish. Never caught one in the field that had eggs on its back. And then I was disturbed. I was like, I have literally sampled from this particular pond many times over the years, but I've been studying these things since the late 1980s. And I mean, this is unheard of that we're not catching any males that aren't reproducing, that don't have eggs on their backs, which I was very concerned about. That was weird. We checked other ponds in the area to see if it was just something funky about this one pond we were in. Same thing, not finding any males anywhere in northern New Jersey we went. We couldn't find any males with eggs on their backs. I was like, that's so weird. It got weirder. In the laboratory, you bring them into the lab, and they usually in the fall, like we've got them mating in September, and we can do experiments in the lab with males with eggs on their backs. Definitely late September, October. Nobody wants to mate. Now it's November. Nobody wants to mate in the lab, in the wild. And in the lab, I mean, it's a gushy environment. We've got them in warm conditions. We're feeding them with naiads and crickets and everything they could want to eat. They're eating like crazy. It's not that they're not eating. Nobody's reproducing. And so my students now are freaking out because their master's theses are supposed to be about reproduction of these things, and they're not mating. So we obviously pivoted and studied other things. But I was like, this is very weird. So I waited a couple of years, had a couple of undergraduates, and I was like, you know what? I just thought this was weird. Let's go out and check again. And so we went out in the fall, sampled, canvassed northern New Jersey. Nobody's mating in the fall. Now, I have years of data myself of northern New Jersey of water bugs mating in the fall. They're not mating in the fall anymore. So I went out in the spring the following year, they're mating in the spring. So this is a species, and I can find published references from the 1800s that talk about a mating season in the spring that I told you guys about and a mating season in the fall that I told you guys about. Going back to the 1800s, there are records of this happening, and it doesn't happen anymore. At least in northern New Jersey, it doesn't happen anymore. They've gone down to one reproductive season now. The fall young don't reproduce. They go straight into overwintering and then wait until the next spring to reproduce. And so that, my friends, I think, is somehow correlated with what's going on in the world right now. And you might say, but what does it have to do with them? Why would they not want to? They live in the water, is the water a lot hotter, but it's not about temperature per se. It's about all the things that are becoming ecologically disentangled as a result of climate change. So let's this is just a hypothetical scenario, but play this thought experiment out in your head that on land, plants are flowering at the same time that plants always flower. I'm sorry, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. Animals are reproducing at the same time animals always reproduce because their biological clocks are based on how long the day is, right? So when the day gets to be the right length, the animals start to do their thing. Plants, on the other hand, are setting seed and flowering at different times of year because the temperature, the cues they use are based on things like temperature and water availability. All right, so now the pollinating insects are becoming adults at a time when the plants that they pollinate are not flowering. And you see where this is going. And so both of those populations start to crash. Now that thing was eaten by a thing that was eaten by a thing that somehow winds up into the aquatic ecosystem. And now the things that the water bugs eat aren't available maybe in the way they had been. So we talked about the dragonflies, and you guys love the dragonfly naiads so much. Let me tell you another thing I noticed in the fall when I was sticking my net in the water and the bugs weren't breeding. Normally, for many, many years, like decades, I've done this. You put your net in the water in a pond in August, and you pull out just like a gooky, creepy, crawly, muddy batch of all sorts of bugs, dragonfly naiads and water creepers and just all these things you can imagine it's teeming with life. And I remember that very first fall when I was out with those grad students, I was like, something feels off because you put your net in there and there's like one dragonfly naiad in there. I'm like, this is just not right. There should be, tens of dragonfly naiads in this net every time I put it in the water, and that was not the case. So I think the whole community structure is off in freshwater aquatic ecosystems now, probably due to many things, ripple effects from other parts of the ecosystem that maybe are a little more sensitive to climate change. But ultimately, our water bug is, like I said at the beginning of our talk today, the apex predator. They're going to be much more sensitive to tweaks in the food pyramid, so to speak, or the food web. So,
we've definitely talked before about how the system is a large system and everything is connected, and you can't just pull one thing out and not worry about a cascade effect. And that kind of sounds like what's going on here. It's like that classic question when people ask me, can we get rid of all the mosquitoes? And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
no, we don't know what would happen if we did
exactly.
that.
And I've heard you ask that very question several times when you've given research talks. And my mind on some level is goes to the water bugs as well. I'm like, man. And so that's the stuff that like most people are like, oh, it's getting hotter or the weather's more extreme. Yeah, on the scale we live, that's the way we're experiencing climate change right now. But on the scale that, an aquatic small animal that eats other animals lives, like it's really dramatic. It's super dramatic. So anyway, so that's not a happy way to end our talk, but maybe
It's an important way to end the
yeah,
talk.
to sort of say, these
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
little
yeah.
animals that Scott and 3 other people on the planet are interested in because they do this weird parental behavior, but they are tied into what's happening on the planet. That I don't care who's the president of the United States. Climate change is real. It's really happening, and it really is derived from anthropogenic sources. And so, this is our fault. This is our
Yeah,
fault.
we did this.
Think about that the next time you drive your, gas-powered vehicle. The poor water bugs don't breed in the fall anymore. And if I could just say one more thing before we wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Professionally, I have recently taken up a leadership role in an initiative to attract people back into the science teaching profession. You may or may not be aware, listening audience, that there are many classrooms, certainly in my state, New Jersey, but in the United States of America, in which science classrooms don't have a science teacher in them. And so if you're fine with your kids being taught science by the PE teacher, and there's nothing against PE teachers, but they're not trained to teach, molecular genetics, just saying. If you're fine with that, that's one thing, but I don't think anybody's fine with that. There's a lot of reasons why people don't go into science teaching anymore, and we can't talk about that obviously today. But I just want to say that part of what makes your podcast so exciting is that it's really about a love of living things. You all have a passion for these funny little animals that are so diverse and do all these interesting things. And on some level, I'll bet you every single one of you had some teacher in your past that made you excited about living things and the quirky things living things do, right? And so it ain't just water bugs that are in danger of going extinct. It's the American scientific reasoning abilities of our population at large that are very much imperiled. So I just want to say, tied to this love of science that your podcast does so well, is the love of teaching children to be excited. And I know you do a lot of work with children as part of this podcast, right? So I just want to let you know that as a professional at the university that I'm at, we're making very concerted efforts, putting money behind and time behind, attracting people back into this profession. We want to fill classrooms with science teachers that do exactly the work you guys do in your podcast, just inspiring young minds to be
That's
excited
awesome,
about
Scott.
science. So I'll just leave you guys with that.
Thanks. If there's any way I can
thanks.
help with that, Scott, let me know.
Much appreciated.
If you need, you can call a favor.
I will
Absolutely.
do. Thank you.
Okay, Kelly, it's up to you to fill your back full of children and bring them to science classrooms
everywhere. But a shout out to Dr. Levy, my biology teacher from Forked River High School, who's retired, who was an entomologist and did research in the summertime when he was not teaching he had a big influence on me.
Thank you, Dr. Levy.
Yeah.
You were influenced from the beginning.
And Mr. Graziano, my middle school bio teacher, who used the fungi joke. He said he was a fungi. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
but no, seriously, like look at the impact those teachers had, because now you are like this ambassador for science awesomeness. As a professor
Scott.
yourself, but also through this venue, through the Comic-Con things you do. Like, think of the thousands of comic book nerds that are like more educated and inspired about entomology because you were inspired by a couple of teachers. Like, that's just profound. That's so cool.
No, thanks. Oh, Amanda.
And I, of course, would like to thank Zaboomafoo, the lemur, for anyway. Thanks for coming on with us today, Dr. Kight. I've been so excited about Waterbug because my friend moved to Massachusetts and immediately sent me a picture of one of these saying, "What is this?" And I said, "I don't know."
Um,
So I've been very
All
excited to
right.
talk about it.
Amanda, how many legs out of 6 would you give a
Oh, how
water
many
bug?
legs? I think based on the I love to reward
Mhm.
unique
You do.
behaviors when we do these. I think the unique behavior of having the buggy egg back is so cool. I think it just bumps it up to a 6 kind of no matter what, because it's so unique. Even though I hate to look at it, looking at it is really grossing me out. But even though it's cool, I think it's predatory, which I think is always really cool when a bug is like a master hunter of his domain. Because something about that always makes me feel like I shrink down to its environment and like imagine a world that's so different from mine, because I don't live underwater, I don't live on this scale. And then here comes, like, imagine if you were tiny and then a giant water bug was like doo, 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 like a shadow goes over you like Jaws and you're like, oh my gosh. And then here he is with his giant claws and he's coming right for you. Terrifying. That's really cool to me too. So I gotta go
All
six to
right.
six
6
on
out of
this guy.
6. Scott,
I know I'm always so
how many
generous.
legs would you give the water
Oh,
bug? Although
definitely
you're
a 6
probably a little
because yeah,
biased.
this is the thing that literally was my first experience as a real scientist, and I'm still studying them today. So clearly 6 legs worth of impact on me. Yeah.
6. I'm also going to give it a 6. Male parental care is so rare. We need to applaud these little guys for being good role models for
And we've had some
humans and
really
bugs
good
everywhere.
entomological like insults today. We've got, you sap sucker.
Oh.
That today, you back brooder is very good. You're being a real back brooder right now. You stickleback, get out of here. Yeah.
Scott, thank you again so much for your
Thank you for
time. I know
having me.
you're a
This is
busy
awesome.
man. Really appreciate it. I learned a ton. Amanda breaking out gold star terminology too is always fantastic. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And you're always welcome back if you have any other
Oh, thank
topics you
you. I
want to chat
appreciate that.
about.
Hope for the opportunity.
All right. If you want to hear more from, where can we find you? Are
Hmm.
you online at all? I don't know if you have an
Yeah, I do
online
have an online
presence.
presence. I'm at a university called Montclair State University. We're in New Jersey. And my last name, which everybody likes to misspell in one way or another, it's not kite like go fly a kite, and it's not night, which has an N in it. It's Kight, kite, at montclair.edu. Oh, easy to find. You just Google me and I show up pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and you can find out about the crazy stuff I do.
All right. Well, if you want to follow us, we're on Bugs Need Heroes. Pretty much on anywhere you can Google Bugs Need Heroes, you will also find us. Spotify, Reddit,
Blue
etc.,
Sky,
etc.
yeah, Instagram,
All of
Facebook.
them. We're out
Email
there.
us. We love that. Please email us your questions, comments, etc. We love
If
emails.
you've been bitten by a water bug, let us know.
Yes.
I want to know if they really bite toes. Anecdotally, share your evidence with me. Other than that, we love you. Bye. Bugs Need Heroes was created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman. Hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad, with some assistance from Chelsea Bodden and a few cats. Character art is by Amanda Niday. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out at bugsneedheroes.com, and most of the socials are under Bugs Need Heroes. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh my God, I've got a story about that too.
Oh, please share.
Because we were studying cockroaches in my lab for a while around kind of like species interaction stuff. We were really interested in the Turkestan roach, which is invasive right now,
And fairly new.
and so we were wanting to do kind of these little like behavioral like face-offs with the invasive and then other roach species. And so we were like, oh my God, we can order German cockroaches from Carolina, and we did. Oh my God, those little sons of bitches are, I don't know if we're recording for the air, but they are the Houdinis of the animal kingdom. They can get through the tiniest cracks. So we had them in these sort of like insect, the little insect You know what I'm talking
Little
about?
kid
They got a
boxes.
plastic
Yeah.
bottom, the little kit boxes, and they got a vented top or whatever. And we had them in those things. And I was at a movie on a weekend, and my student texted me, and they're like, "There are hundreds of roaches all over the lab." I'm like, "No!" So they all got out and were running loose, and I was like, "Oh God," So yeah, so never again with the German roaches.
Yeah.
Turkestans are cool though. You may be familiar with those.
Yeah, they're
Those are
very
neat.
pretty.